reacting to what happened yesterday in week 6 of the college football season. Ole Miss returned to dominance yesterday, getting the win in a blowout over South Carolina at 27-3. Ole Miss played their best defensive game in 9 years. It had been that long since they had held an SEC opponent to just 3 points. They seem to have the defense to be able to be a contender in the SEC this season. I'm now thinking that that loss to Kentucky was just a fluke, and that Ole Miss still is a really good team. But bad news is that Trey Harris did have an ankle injury in the game in uh, the second quarter and wasn't able to return. Hopefully, he'll be back next Saturday because they're gonna need him really badly against LSU. I don't have any complaints about how Ole Miss's defense played in that game, but offensively, I still feel like they could be better. Like when they were nearly in the end zone and the receiver tried to extend the ball to the goal line and then lost the football, which gave it to South Carolina. Tennessee seems to be what they have always been. They're a fake. Nico, I'm about to leave you is a fake too. He looks like the next Joe Milton, who played quarterback for Tennessee last season. Nico, I'm about to leave you. I saw on all of the Heisman lists of possibilities. Before the season began, and he's not even close to a Heisman type of quarterback. He's not any good since he's been playing SEC games. In these two SEC games, he hasn't had 200 yards passing in either uh, game. And I said in my Tennessee prediction video before the season began that just because he's a five-star quarterback and scored a few touchdowns in a bowl game doesn't mean that he's already an elite college quarterback. And It reminds me of the off season before the 2023 season when Joe Milton was on the Heisman lists everywhere and turned out to be a dud. But Tennessee is not a serious national title contender or even a serious SEC title contender. They lost to Arkansas at 19-14, and they had the lead in that game, and then Arkansas's starting quarterback got hurt, and then Tennessee still couldn't beat them. They let Arkansas's backup quarterback get them a scoring drive, uh, and so Arkansas has lost to Oklahoma State. They've lost two games already, and that wasn't a good loss because Oklahoma State has turned out to be one of the surprise duds of the season. So Tennessee is probably going to lose 3 or 4 games this season. And then Michigan is not any good. They're back to how they were before they had these three really good seasons. So their biggest problem is they've got a coach that doesn't know what he's doing with this Sharon Moore. Turns out I don't think he was the right hire for them. His first big mistake was not going out and getting a transfer quarterback because Michigan is on their third quarterback now, and it's not because the other two have gotten hurt. It's because they're trash. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback on their team this year that would be the starting quarterback on an FCS team. And if you don't know how to develop a quarterback, or the quarterbacks that you have don't know how to throw a pass, then you've got to get one out of the transfer portal. And he also should have tried to get some receivers in the portal that knew how to catch the football. And he's also let their defense fall apart. Washington, they let score 27 points. They lost the game 27-17, and Washington's nowhere near what they were last year. at least not offensively. So giving up 27 points to them was not good at all. And Michigan's defense, I know, is not as deep as it was last season, but it's still talented enough to where they should be playing better than they are. And then when they gave up 24 to Minnesota the week before, I knew that wasn't a good sign. And then I thought they did well when they only gave up 24 points to USC, but it turns out USC is not any good either. I was wrong about them. I thought they were going to be a surprise team and have a good season, but they're a dud too because they lost to Minnesota, who's not any good. They lost to them 24-17. So USC's offense actually isn't any good this season. Michigan's going to lose at least 4 games this season. And then Texas A&M, it looks like I was right about them. They seem to at least be a playoff contender. I picked them to make the college football playoff this season. So they're 5-1 right now, and their only loss came in the opener. And I think that the way they played it last Saturday, if they kept playing like that, they would not lose to Notre Dame again if they played again. And Connor Wayman, their quarterback, seems to finally be playing like a 5-star quarterback, which is what he is. So in 2022, when he started some games as a freshman, he didn't look that good. And then in 2023, he looked a little better. And he got hurt though early in the year and missed the rest of the season. And then he didn't look very good in the Notre Dame game, and then missed all of the games up to this last game against Missouri, where he had a really good game. Texas A&M dominated Missouri, winning 41-10. And Missouri, of course, was so overrated, like I thought they were. But Texas A&M, I think, is a really good team. Their defense is so good, especially that defensive lineman transfer that they brought in, Nick Scorton. He looks like one of the best players in college football. And Texas A&M, I think, should only have 2 games left on their schedule that they would have a good chance of losing. LSU and Texas A, I mean Texas, and you would think if they can win one of those two, that they could go to the college football playoff because at 10-2 would get them a spot in the 12-team playoff. But I won't say that they couldn't lose to any of their other opponents left on their schedule. I would say except for Vanderbilt, but after what happened yesterday, I'll say except for Mississippi State because they're the new FCS team of the SEC. So Vanderbilt's upset win over Alabama, 40-35, was the biggest upset for sure since I've been watching college football, and I've been watching college football since before I was even 10 years old, and now I've been an adult for 3.5 years, and that might have been the biggest college football upset ever because I know Alabama was favored by 22 in the game, and there have been teams lose that were favored by more than that, but Alabama was the number 1 team in the country going into the game, and Vanderbilt is known for being a trashy program. So Alabama had no business losing this game. Vanderbilt doesn't have near the talent or the size or the speed that Alabama does, but Vanderbilt does deserve a lot of credit for winning the game because they did have a good game plan and outplayed Alabama in this game. And I saw in this game that Kalen DeBoer is not Nick Saban, and I knew that as soon as he was hired by Alabama, that he would not be as good as Nick Saban was for Alabama. So Kalen DeBoer, I think, was thinking that when he got the job at Alabama, he could do there what he did at Washington in the now non-existent Pac-12 conference, where he could just have a really explosive offense that would put up a whole lot of points and not really have to worry about defense because they could just outscore their opponents. But in the SEC, it does not work like that. The SEC is about defense, and even if you have a really explosive offense, you're still not always going to score 40 or more points in a game. Like Ole Miss has one of those really talented, explosive offenses, but they're still not scoring 40 points a game because they're an SEC team. If they weren't an SEC team, they would be scoring 40 something points a game every game, probably. Alabama's offensive line and Jalen Milroe are clearly better than they were last season. And Alabama's defense, though, has taken a big step back since Nick Saban has been going. So I thought even though Alabama did win the game against Georgia, that they clearly weren't the same because of how their defense fell apart in that game. And then giving up 33 points offensively to Vanderbilt was unacceptable. I know Vanderbilt scored 40 in the game, but one of those scores was a pick six. But still, Alabama last year would not have given up anywhere near 33 points to Vanderbilt, even if Vanderbilt was like they are this year. And Vanderbilt is no doubt better than they were last year. But I still don't think Vanderbilt is a very good team. So that's why this is such a embarrassing loss for Alabama. Because I think Vanderbilt is still going to lose a bunch of other games this season, and they have two losses already, but one of them coming to a little team. They play Kentucky this next Saturday, and I think Kentucky will beat them. I don't feel near as bad about Ole Miss losing to Kentucky now after Alabama just lost to Vanderbilt. Ole Miss still looks like a contender and might actually be better than Alabama still this year. Even though Alabama beat Georgia and Ole Miss lost to Kentucky last Saturday. And I know you may be thinking, if you're an Alabama fan, well, they beat Georgia, so they're still the same as they were when Nick Saban was there. But Alabama's Georgia's owner, so it's no surprise that they beat Georgia. And seems like Kalen DeBoer has stopped the extra strength training that Nick Saban did with the players, and that was to keep their defense to where they could hold up, but for 4 quarters, and they don't seem to have a defense like that anymore. And when you're in the SEC, even if you're the team to beat, you a lot of times have to win games like 30-14, like Nick Saban did. But that will be it with this video, and please subscribe and thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.